It is Wednesday, June 7th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. Back with me, fresh off a second vacation, is Jared Smola. And joining us today is our guest, David Zock. If you're not already following him on Twitter, at David Zock16, that's Z-A-C-H, then you should be. He's the creator of Fantasy Z-Score model. You can access his Freaks in the Spreadsheets guide for free through Twitter right now. David, I was surprised to see that today. I'm wondering if there's something going wrong over there and you're accidentally giving this away. So thanks for joining us, and please tell me if that's a mistake or if that's on purpose.
No, I just wanted to get it out there, help as many people out as I can, and kind of just dabble into the full guide scene. It's my first year doing it. Didn't think it was right to be charging people on the first experimental year. But yeah, feedback has been great so far. Got ranking is in there, best ball strategy, full team projections, rookie dynasty rankings, stuff like that. So it was a blast to put together. It was a lot of work, though. I think that sucker's like 87 pages long. So no, it's been fun.
That's how you can tell a true fantasy geek, is they describe putting together something that's 87 pages as a blast.
I asked my wife to read through it. She goes, I don't know if I can do it. Sorry, hon. I'm like, I understand.
Nobody in my house watches any of our videos or reads any of my articles, so right. I can understand that. Tell us a little bit about your Fantasy Z-Score model.
Yeah, so I've been, over the years, I've been putting together a lot of metrics that I think matter most for projecting out a rookie on the dynasty landscapes or multi-year career. Typically look at a 3-year window, years 1 through 3 for running backs, years 2 through 4 for wide receivers. And as time goes on, my database has gotten bigger, and I try to keep it to current, 5 to 7 years in the past, because I don't want old stats in there influencing things wrong. But I've been keeping up to that well, and I kind of give a grade assignment for each category, whether it's market share on their senior year in college, or how much a running back works in the receiving room and stuff like that. And I put them all together, breakout age, and the list goes on and on. Film grade, adding that in there was a big one. That really helped the model overall. So that's something that I think was missing from the fantasy landscape for a long time, is having actionable data off of film grades. A lot of people just say, look at how this guy cuts and he's so good in this way. But if you don't have a number to it, I don't know what that means. A number or a ranking, right? Both work. So I've started incorporating that from the Dynasty Nerds Nerd Score. They have a film score. They do Scouts Inc., NFL.com, Lance Zierlein. He has great film scores. So just kind of putting it all together, and it's been doing well from a rookie standpoint. Had a rough go here with injuries, so hoping to get back on top with it this upcoming year, and everyone stays healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're certainly always fans of putting numbers to things, right, Jared?
Yeah, David speaks my language. He's a projections guy. He's honestly one of my favorite follows on Twitter, and I learn a lot from the stuff he does, and we go back and forth on projection stuff throughout the offseason. So it's fun.
Yeah. We are gathered today primarily to draft a team together for the Underdog Ball Mania 4 tournament. A record $3 million top prize, of course, this year. Greatly expanded regular season prize structure. If you want some free money to play on Underdog now, you can use promo code DRAFTSHARKS to get your first deposit matched up to $100. So that's a bunch of free entries, especially, if you're not into Ball Mania, if that's too high an entry point for you, Puppy 2 is also available, $5 per entry. So if you get $100 free to play with on there, that's 20 free entries. Again, promo code is DRAFTSHARKS. That field is also smaller than BBM 4, and there's going to be more tournaments coming throughout the summer. But David, like I said, we're talking about Ball Mania today. It's a ginormous field. It's a 150 max entry tournament. How many entries are you planning to put into this particular tournament on Underdog?
Yeah, I'm planning to max it. It'll be my first year maxing out a tournament. I'm 72 drafts deep right now in it. So I've been going a little heavy earlier here. I think I have a pretty good edge with starting projections out, and I've gone through them a lot and have my playoff schedule and everything like that I kind of blend all together. And points over replacement. So I think I know where some good edges are, and I want to be in before all the ADP starts jumping around. It's already shifting quite a bit. Yeah, I like getting ahead of those movements. I think when August comes, everyone's drafting at the same spot, so there's no super edge. You have a lot more information, but you're sacrificing any ADP changes. So there is a balance, but yeah, it'll be a fun process. How about you guys? Are you both going to max it out?
I will max it out. I don't have the time to max it out. I mean, I do if I wanted to lose sleep, but I'll probably get up to around 50 entries is my plan.
I'm focused on the super flex tournaments on Underdog this year. There's not currently one open. I did get a bunch into the last one. I'm waiting for another one to come out. I don't have any insight into when it's coming, but I'm assuming it is because they ran multiple last year. So that's where I'm finding the edge. BBM's not quite in my wheelhouse.
I'm with you though, David, on drafting earlier being better. And I correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't the last two BBM champs those teams been drafted in June? That's right.
Yeah.
I think
King Capital and Pat Crane, right? And then Chess Liam.
Liam. I think they were all June drafts, which that doesn't necessarily mean that's the time of draft. But I think it does make sense. Like you said, I do think the ADP gets more efficient the closer we get to the season.
Right.
And I saw recently there were stats posted on Twitter that it was something like 88 or 89% of the finalists came from August drafting, but that's also when that amount of the overall drafts were happening. So it's not that you're more likely to make it to the finals if you draft late. It's that's when more people were drafting. So that's when more went in. It looks like your chances, at least based on last year's results, are not greater or lesser depending on where you draft in the calendar. So you'll hear some people say you got to wait and draft closer because those are the teams that make it through. It hasn't proved to be true. There's certainly different edges to go after in either spot.
I even think it might be true that you're more likely to advance out of your league in August because I think you're more likely to build good teams, but I think your chance to build that super team that wins this whole thing that beats out 700,000 other teams or whatever it is. I think you have a better chance early when you can get those massive values and build that super team.
That's right. Yeah. TJ Hernandez with 4for4 was doing a lot of interesting work on that, and you saw the volume spike just like you said, Matt. And you get to August, it goes parabolic in all the entries, so it makes sense that a lot of the finalists comes from there. That's just the majority of the drafts. So
right. Now, David, I saw the other day that you said didn't surprise me to see that you're in on Tyler Lockett. I think that's somebody that we generally agree about. But what jumped out to me is you said, I told myself I didn't want to go over 25% on a player this early in the year. Now, to my thinking, it seems like this is the time of year when it's okay to go higher because it will even out as ADPs shift as we get closer to the season. Why are you not wanting to get that high on a player right now? And by saying this early in the year, does that mean that as we get closer, you're more willing to go above that threshold?
Yep. So that's the most common pushback I get on my, abstract 25% number I set for myself is that, things are going to change over time and you're going to be able to balance out different builds. But I got burned so bad the last 2 years from injury. Like I had Wan'Dale Robinson at 45%, over $700 and across all leagues on him, and he went out for just an enormous chunk. I had 35% Lamar Jackson, and he missed the most important time of the year. So I just promised myself I'd never get that high or at least that early again. I'm probably going to want to stay 30%, under 30% all the way to the end. But as it gets closer to August, I'm going to kind of throw out a lot of my rules because ADP will have shifted so much, and then it's just going to be a completely different draft room. So I'm just going to try to get my guys as much as I can in the later drafts. But just kind of protecting myself and the risk I'm going to allow for myself, because if you map out all the payouts, it's a net negative return on portfolio building for best ball. They take the rake, it's top heavy. So if you factor all that in, you can kind of see what the average or median loss is. And then that's the number you can kind of set for yourself. And that's if you do exactly average, or if you do exactly like everyone else, your payback's going to be, minus $12 a draft on these BBMs almost. So I think I have an edge. So that's why I'm going heavy. But that's the risk tolerance, I guess, I set for myself.
Yeah. And I think if you're drafting a ton of best balls, you should be looking at exposures, and the number to stay under is up to you, kind of, whether it's 40% or 30% or 25% like that. That's how risky you want to get. But I do think there's some number you should aim to stay at. Now, I think maybe closer to what Matt was alluding to, where in these early drafts, I want to kind of press what I think are my advantages. So someone like Tyler Lockett, who is still, to me, way underpriced. And I think as we get into August, he's going to climb an ADP and be priced more correctly. So in drafts now, I'm not saying I'm taking him in every draft, but I'm willing to get, above 50% on Lockett now And then, when July and we get into August, I'll start backing off him as his ADP, I assume is going to get more efficient.
So just going off of that, you could live with it if you're at 50% and in practice, something serious happens. Like that's something you're okay with at a 6th-round pick, or that's roughly his price now, 5th round, 6th.
You mean like if he goes down in like August with a camp injury or something? Because I'm willing to take that risk. Again, like by the end of drafts, by the time I get my 50 drafts in, I don't want to have 50% Tyler Lockett, maybe 35, 40% Tyler Lockett. But again, I'm just saying now early when I think his price is as cheap as it's going to be, that's when I'm willing to take as much as I can get at this current price.
Yep, that's the common theme I'm hearing. So maybe I need to rethink my strategy here a little bit. But
I would say it's very specific to players and situations too. I mean, I think it's a good general rule, but there might be a few guys, and certainly the later you get in a draft, the easier it is to go higher on a guy because if you're taking somebody a lot in round 14, you're not losing a whole lot if he gets hurt in that early August practice.
True. Yep.
So we'll jump into a draft here in a few minutes. David, what has been your focus as you draft? Like in each individual draft, what are you focused on as it goes?
Roster construction's the biggest thing for me. You can have all the player takes in the world, but if you don't build your roster right, none of it matters. Like people taking, 3 early quarterbacks and that crazy stuff you see right now. It's just they have dead teams and they're not going to make it. So roster construction is super important, and you can look at historical winning teams. And I think the average build of the winning teams in the top 20 BBMs and puppies, I put them all together, is 2.3 quarterbacks, 5.3 running backs, 7.6 wide receivers, and 2.3 tight ends. So roughly a 2.583 or 2.592 build. So staying around that and then adjusting it according to the quality over quantity. I think Peter Overzet said that best. It's you're either taking quality or quantity at a position. So if you get elite quarterback, you only need 2. And if you're fading quarterback, you need 3. So just simple stuff like that, putting it all together, but just being very aware of it. A lot of people kind of throw it out the window, I see in drafts, and to each their own, right? It's their money, but I think they're wasting a lot of money just not paying attention to a very simple edge you can have just by looking historically. Even the years before that, it was very similar roster build wise. For sure.
I think that it's pretty easy, especially if you're maxing out. It's easy to throw away a team here or there on something just, strange that you think if I hit it, then it's not going to be duplicated by somebody else in the field. But I think that it would be a big mistake for anybody who's, farther short of maxing out to think that with even just a single entry into the tournament, because more likely it's not getting you anything.
And even when you're getting strange, like get strange in a way that makes sense. Like, don't take a tight end through 13 rounds and then build a 4 tight end team. That's strange, but it kind of makes sense. Again, going back to the quantity over quality thing. You're not spending any early round picks on tight ends, but you're spending 4 late ones. That's strange, but at least theoretically it could work.
That's funny you mentioned that. I did my first 4 tight end build, exactly that method this morning. No joke.
It seems like a good year to do it.
It does. There's a lot of
tight ends.
Higbee, I think he's flirting along that line. Conklin, Noah Fant, and I forget the 4th one. But another late flyer.
That's the appropriate answer. It should be somebody that you don't remember.
Right.
So in case anybody who is watching or listening is not familiar, this is the setup for BBM 4, 12-person drafts, 18 rounds, half PPR scoring. The lineup is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, 8 lineup spots. That is 18 roster spots. So that's what you're building from. Those are the numbers that David was given before for that whole roster construction thing. Jared, what has been your typical roster construction within those confines?
Yeah, it's pretty close to what David had said, 2.592 with 1 or 2 of those spots being flexible based on where I think I need the most help as I get towards the end of drafts.
And David, what has been what are the edges besides what you've mentioned so far? What other edges are you seeing as you try to draft these?
I think there's obviously projection edges. So we build out our projections, right? And we see clear differences versus ADP on where they're valuing. Like David Montgomery, I think is going to get a much larger share than he's giving credit for at ADP right now, for example. And then the other ones are playoff scheduling, because not everyone pays attention to week 15 and 16. I know week 17 kind of generated a ton of buzz lately, and that's gaining more steam. Yep. So this is something I use for every draft. I pull it up, see the matchups, and I'm not just focusing on week 17. I have one for week 17 isolated as well that kind of goes over this, but I'm looking at all the matchups on this matchups in motion sheet. You can see the implied totals. Those are from my projections and their matchups. And then I took consensus defense ranks to see who's going to allow the most points this year or is most likely, because I'm not a defense expert like you, Matt. You probably have a better feel for your own projections on that one.
David, sorry to interrupt. Our draft is fired up and we're on the clock at pick 4 here. You guys
my goodness.
Guys like Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, or Travis Kelce?
I like Kupp or Kelce personally.
Kupp for me.
It is.
Yeah, Jared liked to jump in quietly behind us so that he could make his picks and start things off. So yeah, we are jumped into a BBM4 draft now on Underdog. You can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, Jared has the sidebar up. He has synced his draft with the Draft Sharks War Room. So that gives you the sidebar as you're drafting, shows you the players that we would recommend taking every turn when it comes up. So sync your Underdog draft. You'll get that same thing in the draft room. Certainly helps you to keep up with, top picks, not have to toggle between that and a draft war room as you draft, right, Jared?
Yeah, 30-second clock for these. I mean, it flies. So like you said, not having to go back and forth between screens, having this up for you is super, super helpful.
That's why I got David, you said two monitors as well. Get some of each on there.
Definitely a good setup. David, you said you were either Cooper Kupp or Travis Kelce on that one. Do you have those guys significantly ahead of Tyreek Hill?
So I actually have Tyreek Hill higher for season-wise. Well, not than Kupp, I guess. But his playoff schedule for me on that chart you're just showing is just brutal. Miami's playoff gauntlet is just terrible. What do they got? The Jets, Ravens, and they got the Ravens in week 17. Let me pull it up here. Yeah, Jets, Dallas, and then Ravens. So, really good secondaries. Overall, very good defenses too, right? So that's why I shy away from him. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going like 60-40 Tyreek Hill over Kupp in that scenario. I do prefer Hill straight up, and I guess to me the playoff matchups aren't quite enough to bump Kupp in front for me. I do like the price on Matt Stafford though. I think that's a mark in Kupp's favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point, David. I wonder how much you let that affect your wide receiver picks earlier in the draft, because I know I wouldn't say that I would pick a wide receiver thinking that I'll be disappointed if I don't take his quarterback or necessarily planning to take his quarterback. But if I have several guys who are close together, it certainly does help me a bit in a best ball tournament to say, I know that I like the price on this quarterback. I know that it's going late. I know it's going to be pretty stackable. I'm going to take this and then see if I can get that guy later. Is that affecting your planning at all as you pick wide receivers?
No, I guess the stacking part, comes later. I just worry about the draft up front, and then I take it as it comes later on, because you never know if someone's gonna just be a jerk and snipe Tua or Stafford or whatever 30 picks ahead of ADP. So I don't like that to affect me too much, and I'm looking at to balance out my team anyway. And like you said, they got to have standalone value the way it is. They're a first round pick, so if I don't get the stack, so be it. But that's been my kind of approach there.
Yeah, and that's the first part of it, is if not getting the quarterback is going to ruin you mentally for the team, then it shouldn't impact your thinking. You got to start with a player who's worth drafting anyway. So we're almost back up on the clock in round 2. We did take Cooper Kupp the first time around. You can see Jared's got Tony Pollard starred. I'm in favor of that. What about you, David?
Yep, I like Pollard or Higgins or Henry or Jacobs. I like all those. I'm a big running back guy. I'm pretty heavy on these first 3 rounds running backs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the running backs are the best bets here. I think just based on ADP, obviously Henry and Jacobs could even get back to us in round 3. So I think Pollard's the pick here.
Yeah. So when you say heavy on running backs there, how many are you typically taking in the first 3 rounds?
I'm trying to come away with 2 pretty much every draft, unless I objectively start out, that I have 0 RB in my mind or something like that, or elite tight end, elite quarterback. So I also think these elite quarterbacks were underpriced at the back of the second, let alone in the third. And I'm very, very high on Hurts this year. I think he's going to be the QB1. But that's just my feel. How do you guys feel about the elite quarterbacks here?
I did not like them in round 2, but I agree that once they get into round 3, I've had a much easier time drafting them there. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, it's really just based on the opportunity cost, right? What am I passing up on at the other positions to take one of those elite quarterbacks? And to me, like this range right here, like I love Pollard, so I wouldn't pass on him for an elite quarterback, usually.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like once we get into this group of players, I'm definitely willing to pull the trigger on, Hurts if he gets back to us here.
Do you think Dallas adds somebody? Do you think they bring Zeke back or something else?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think you can go into the season with Rojo as your number 2.
We got Derrick Henry and Jalen Hurts in our queue with our pick back up in round 3. I don't have a favorite between them, honestly.
I do love them both. So
I like Hurts just for the ADP value, right? We're getting him 5 picks past ADP here.
That's a nice build.
Yep, I like it.
All right. Can get behind a Cooper Kupp, Tony Pollard, Jalen Hurts start for sure in this tournament where we need ultimate upside.
Yes.
What is it? The Fantasy Gazette is everyone takes a screenshot of their first 3 picks and says, "How awesome is this team right now?"
I hope it's awesome.
Right.
Lamar Jackson continues to rocket up ADP.
Oh, rightfully so in my mind. He's my second most owned quarterback. I think he's severely undervalued yet, but
you think he's severely undervalued in round 3 still?
Oh, I wasn't watching. I didn't see he went right after Hurts there. No, he was when he falls to the late third or anywhere past ADP, and I'm sitting there like I have to click him. I think top 3 is very easily in his range, if not top 1 if things fall right. But
yeah.
I have Hurts projected there, but with everything new that's in the Ravens offense, I just love it. And I've always been a Lamar fan too, and I'm obviously one of the biggest Rashad Bateman fans there is on the planet. But so I think he's going to do well with Monk in there, and everything they're changing. It's just everything's going to open up in my mind. So defense are going to have to pay attention to the wide receivers again. Bateman's healthy, Andrews is healthy. You got Beckham and Flowers now. There's so much happening there. I'm really excited for their offense.
Yeah, for me, the key point there is there's a lot that we don't know because they should be passing a lot more than they have been. And even if you look 2 years ago, they did pass a lot more than they did in the seasons around it. But this time they actually have a much better set of wide receivers. So between the wide receivers and the different offensive coordinator, there's like we can project more passing. We can project the numbers based on the rates that we have from the past, but there's just so much unknown that I agree. The upside definitely runs all the way to top overall quarterback this year.
Sure. I just hope they don't pass too much.
Yeah, right. He still needs to run the ball, but
exactly. Which I don't think. I don't.
They'll have runs coming off of those passes, though. I mean, even passing more is not going to cut into his running too much. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. It's an exciting offense. I wish that he weren't going as high as he is right now, just so he could still benefit. But he's one of those players that's a great vote in favor of doing these best ball drafts early, because before Lamar got his contract with Baltimore, he was sitting way too far down, even though the upside's always been there.
That's where a lot of my shares come. And it's funny you mentioned that. You used to be able to get Andrews, Lamar on the 3-4 or 4-5 turn even. And now they're a 2-3 turn if you want them both, pretty much. So
that's what we're talking about with drafting early, right? Like
that's right.
And those teams that got Lamar and Andrews in the 3rd and 4th or whatever, or 4th and 5th, they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
So no more quarterbacks have gone since Lamar Jackson followed our Jalen Hurts off the board. We did have 5 more running backs leave the board. Jared's queue has 3 wide receivers, 1 running back. David, how do you feel about Joe Mixon? Because I already know how Jared feels about Joe Mixon.
Oh, I love him. He's even with the rise in ADP, I think he's moved up 40, 50 spots or something like that. I'm still taking him. He could project as a 3rd round pick pretty easily. I'm very sheepish on Christian Watson. I saw you had him in the queue. he's one of those my no-go buttons right
Really?
now
Okay.
in drafts.
Why is
Just
that?
with Jordan Love, I don't think we all know what we're getting. I think the offense in general is going to be more low scoring. And they didn't add much, right? Just Jaden Reed, but Dobbs should come up a little bit. But I think they're going to lean pretty heavy on their running backs. But I think almost every player in their offense I project is overvalued. So that's more from my projections and them as a team in scoring. But what's the bull case for him for you? Just the big playability mostly?
Yeah, and he goes off the board, so we don't got to worry about that. Let's make our pick here, then I can talk about Watson. So I would gamble that Mixon makes it back to us. What do you guys think?
That's fair.
I agree.
And then do you guys have a preference among these wideouts?
I like McLaurin.
I like McLaurin a lot. He's my pick here normally.
Terry McLaurin, while we're talking about him, he for me has been in my best ball drafts somebody that I'll take somebody and then I'm watching and he comes up like 3 picks later and I'm like, man, I should have taken Terry McLaurin. I don't have enough of him yet because I just don't think of Washington enough. And I don't know exactly what his ceiling looks like this year because of the constant quarterback change. I want to like him more than I just kind of naturally do in draft. And he's somebody I'm trying to make myself draft more.
It's funny you mentioned that. So there's definitely uncertainty there, but he's gone through it like every single year. They flip-flop quarterbacks. So that's a kind of something I tell myself to make me feel better about drafting him. Like even in the midst of quarterback chaos every single year, he just puts up the same stat line every single year. He's so reliable despite, can be terrible quarterback play, but I have no idea what Howell is or if Brissett's going to run away with it. Brissett's capable, I guess, of carrying an offense a little bit, right? Or not carrying, managing,
dragging an offense.
Yeah. No, I think reliable is the perfect word for McLaurin. You just look at his profile over the last few years. Now, like the target shares have been super consistent. The yards per route run has been super consistent. Like I don't think he has like top 10 wide receiver upside, and maybe that's an argument against him in a format like this. But I do think he's like a super safe bet for like mid-level wide receiver 2 type of numbers.
Right. Yep,
and I mean, who knows? Maybe he does have that blow-up touchdown season in him. That's basically the difference between him and a wide receiver 1 season right now.
Matt, look who just went at 5'3".
Kadarius Toney. Are you drafting 2 teams in this tournament?
At least we won't need to argue about him in 2 rounds, which is where I would have started to consider him. Do we like Mixon here?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, I think he's easily ahead of Aaron Jones and J.K. Dobbins, who are still on the board. David, to your point about the Packers, I'm wary of that team in general, too. I need to get way into the draft before I actually I hesitate to even say because there's no point in a draft where I look at a Packers player and I get excited about him.
Right. That's how I feel.
For me on Christian Watson, who we were talking about before, most of us, I think, headed into last year skeptical of him. He waited into round 2. He was an older breakout in college. He's an inconsistent player. And then he had this explosive stretch. And he, to me, is somebody that we're doing a little bit too much of. This is the ceiling. If he gets, this percentage of the way to the ceiling over the course of a full season, he's going to be really good. And I think that there's just a bit more downside than is baked into that outlook on him.
Yep. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, and he's wide receiver 20 on Underdog ADP, actually I think it is. I want to say exactly where we have him ranked. So like, I don't view him as a big value. I think he's okay if he's the top guy on my board when he gets there. If he gets a few picks past ADP, I do think he has a pretty high ceiling. So I saw Watson as a boom bust prospect coming into the league. Like I wouldn't been surprised if he flamed out of the league in 5 years. But I obviously saw the upside with his, just size and speed and athleticism. And I do think what he showed last year has me leaning more towards, the boom part of that. It wasn't just the big playability and the touchdowns. It was the target earning ability, right? Like his targets per route run was super high. So yeah, there obviously concerns with the offense with Rodgers no longer there, but I am kind of in, not all in, but I'm in-ish on Christian Watson as a player at this point.
Gotcha. That was one thing I had in mind to ask you. I noticed you always cite and the efficiency metrics, and they're very good, but do your models and projections just incorporate those in? So a lot of times when I build a model, like I have a lot of things feeding it, right? Like stuff like you talk about, but you seem to lean heavier into efficiency metrics than most people. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful, obviously, especially with someone like Watson, where it's like 8 games we're looking at. I always regress stuff towards league averages, but you also got to look at the player archetype and just how they used Watson. The average depth of target was big. He does project as a big play guy going forward. So I do think it's fair to project him as an above average efficiency guy going forward.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Yeah, most of my stuff is 2/3 player, 1/3 regressing back to league average on stuff, or 1/3 team stuff. So,
yep.
I was just curious on your process there. That makes sense.
So we're sitting on Mixon, Tony Pollard, Cooper Kupp, Terry McLaurin, and Jalen Hurts, coming around to our turn late in round 6, right?
Yep.
We've got Dallas Goedert at the top of the queue. Certainly wouldn't mind stacking him with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
David, who've been some of your favorite stacks so far, whether it be ones that you target or ones that you wind up with just based on value?
Dallas Goedert's my number 1 value tight end right now. I think he's going too low. I think he could be tight end 3 to 4.
I think you and Jared just got engaged.
Are you very high on him?
Oh yeah, I love Goedert. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, God willing, he falls 2 more spots to us here then.
These guys both at tight end, so hopefully.
No, his numbers when he came back, I mean, he just commanded targets away from 2 of the best receivers in the league. It was incredible. Like, if you look at that alone and don't look at anything else, like Jalen Hurts is awesome, their offense is awesome. Like that could make its own case, but you put everything together and he's a slam dunk for me personally.
Yeah, I do think we probably get more passing in Philly this year too. They played with so many. It was John
super
Daigle.
Easy schedule last year, right?
Yeah, I mean they're probably going to be trailing a bit more. John Daigle pointed out, I think the number is Jalen Hurts averaged like 11 pass attempts per game in the second half of games last season.
I saw that tweet.
They're playing with leads. They're milking. All right, we want Goedert here.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean 2 of these teams between us don't have a tight end. I do like Treylon Burks, but I think Goedert is the priority.
I don't think we can afford to risk that because then we're stuck with pretty much Swift or Penny as any other stack, right?
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I would say that it would be a question maybe if we didn't already have Jalen Hurts, but it would be Goedert for me there. And I'm big on Burks this year as well. David, what do you think about Treylon Burks this season?
Oh, there he goes. No, I love him. He was my Z-score favorite from my rookie model. So
nice.
Garrett, it was only like 0.2 points between him and Garrett Wilson, and I also was higher than a lot of rankers on Garrett Wilson too. But I think Burks comes back around. Like 0 target share there in Tennessee, which you can paint as a good or bad thing, right? A defense can focus on him then, or he earns all the targets to himself. But I think he's a great player, and I think he'll come around big this year. I hope Tannehill stays starting as well.
Yeah, right.
That's where I think the player comes in, is if it's somebody who's a limited player and he's their number 1 receiver, then you maybe worry about attention. But if it's somebody who made his mark right away in the SEC, then I'm going to go ahead and bet on him. And I was actually just looking at Titans numbers yesterday, and even though they didn't throw the ball a whole lot last year, they vacated a whole lot of targets between last year's roster and this year's. And their biggest addition was Chris Moore, who has 116 career catches through 7 seasons. Is probably not even going to be among their top 3. So there's as much as Treylon Burks wants available to him.
I'm pretty heavy wide receiver here normally, but if you guys want Akers, that's going to be you two got to vote on that one.
I love Akers. I do think we kind of need to go wide out here.
I think wide out. The 2 you got are good. Sure. I like Quentin as well, but Bateman looks good too.
Let's go Bateman. A little ahead of ADP, but he probably wasn't getting back to us.
No.
Now, David, would you differ there if we had 3 wide receivers and 1 running back at that pick? Or is it just a range where you're
maybe. I really like Akers' kind of playoff schedule. I still think he might be a little overvalued with their O-line, and they're going to be back to passing a lot. So I get in a Cam Akers argument every single offseason on Twitter, and it's just all-out warfare because the Cam Akers truthers come hard, right? But there's always so much context behind his great runs. Like Cooper Kupp went down and Allen Robinson got hurt and Higbee was even banged up. And like, who are they throwing to? Van Jefferson and Tutu? Of course they're running the ball a lot. And he was getting a ton of volume. And Kyron Williams was even banged up. So they had so much going on. And he was like, and he was good, right? But he was definitely funneled touches, in my opinion. And a very similar thing happened in his Darrell Henderson shared split days. When Henderson got hurt, he kind of went on his runs. When Henderson was in there, he tempered back a bit. But no, he's one that I can't get away from applying that context in my head, and it never adds up to me. And I was higher on him as a rookie coming out, so it's not like I've hated the guy forever. I think he's always super inflated in most drafts. But what are your guys' thoughts? Obviously, you're open to taking him, so you must like him some, right?
I do, yeah, and I'm not a Cam Akers truther. I wouldn't consider myself, but I do like him this year. And you're right about the context. And I know we've gone back and forth on Twitter, David, about.
Oh yeah, 2 years ago we had a chat about it, right?
Yeah, I mean you're right about the context. I also think, I mean, look at what the Rams have done in their backfield this offseason. Nothing, right? They spent a 5th round pick or whatever it was on Zach Evans. So I kind of think they're willing to let Akers handle the majority of the work. And there are O-line concerns for sure. I also think, though, the Rams offense in general should just bounce back and score more points this season with better health from Kupp and Stafford. Yeah. So, if you're giving me a guy who's going to get 15 to 18 touches per game, which I think is possible for Cam Akers and what should be a better offense this season, I think where he's going here, I mean, where do you just go in the 8th round? I mean, I'd be willing to take Akers in round 6. Like I kind of think that I kind of think that's where he belongs.
That's definitely aggressive compared to me. How about you, Matt?
I would not be looking at the draft board that was just up. I would certainly not be taking Cam Akers when Dalvin Cook's still available. I'm kind of at market on him. I don't want to be out on Cam Akers versus price, but I don't want to be above market on Cam Akers. I just don't believe in him as enough as a player to tout him as a value pick.
So yours is more of a player take where we're kind of looking at it from a team standpoint?
It's kind of both, because I'm not excited about the Rams either. I think they will be better than last year, but I also don't think they're going to be good. And I don't think he's good enough to elevate his situation. So I think he's all right. I think his team's at best all right. So it just makes him not a target for me. And in these tournaments where we need, ceiling outcomes, I don't see it.
Right. So could have you made a similar argument to that last year and when he had his good playoff runs? I'm playing devil's advocate to myself here, even.
Yeah.
Could you have made what?
It was kind
of made the similar argument that we all just did, and then he came back, took the time off from football, whatever that was about, and then had that impressive playoff run. But granted, it was context.
By the way, are we taking a shot on Javonte Williams' knee here, or where are you at, David, on what's available?
All the reports were real promising, so I lean him, Michael Thomas. I can't see the rest of the queue at the moment, but yeah, one of them two looks really good for me. Probably makes more sense to do running back here.
Alvin Kamara is still available too.
We're going to take Javonte. This tournament is where I want my Javonte Williams exposure, because I think if he delivers, it's going to be in the back half of the season. Probably even the final quarter of the season, and that's what you need.
And we'll bring that playoff schedule chart up at the end of the draft again for anybody on YouTube right now. But looking at the Broncos playoff schedule, they're at Detroit, against the Patriots, and then against the Chargers at home. So that looks like a pretty sweet lineup of matchups for those 3 money weeks, right?
Yes. So he's one of my triple crown guys, I like to call it. He shows all better in projections versus the field for me. He's got a great playoff schedule, and he has a wide range of outcomes, right? So we don't know how involved Samaje Perine's really going to be. I do believe in Javonte's talent a lot. I like what he did when he was active. And Denver as a whole, as a team, I have them bouncing back real hard. Like you said, with the Rams, I have Denver bouncing back even more so towards the top end of the league, or topper end, I should say. And they improved their O-line a lot, right? They got three big names coming in there. So, and a lot of guys returning from injury. So pretty excited for that O-line to start moving some mountains here.
Yeah, the O-line's nice. I like the Sean Payton addition, obviously. Yep. Wilson's the big question mark for me. Just at his age, and even, I think people forget, even 2 years ago, his last year in Seattle, he was not that good. So it's not just last year that he struggled.
On the clock again with 1 quarterback, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Jameson Williams is in there, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Boyd, Odell Beckham, the top wide receivers available.
Who do you guys like?
Nothing really stands out to me, honestly. You guys have
Juju and Njoku.
Yeah, I love Njoku. Do you want to kind of take?
I would be fine being done. Yep.
Be done at tight end. Did I get him? Oh shit!
Auto-picked Richardson.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh man.
Gotta work the queue.
Oh, man.
We gotta queue him up.
My fault. Oh,
At least he's got a
second
different
team.
bye week. That's all right. Hey, they play
it's a good story if this
Vegas
team-
week 17, right? So
Yeah.
he's got a big ceiling. So
Be good.
we're
Good story
good
when
at
this team
quarterback.
wins $3 million.
Well,
With an
folks,
auto
we're
pick.
trying to do how to draft a team. Sometimes it turns into how not to draft a team, and not having
Right.
somebody in your queue is not the way to do it, especially if you're talking to other people about who to pick. So it looked like we were leaning David Njoku. I would certainly be fine with him being the pick next turn if he's still on the board. It is a tough range at wide receiver. Jameson Williams has that kind of late season upside where I think he's more attractive in a tournament. Tough to know exactly what he looks like on the field because we haven't seen much of it yet, though.
And even with him, like I like Williams better if he's my wide receiver 5, right? On a team that went wide receiver heavy or earlier. Counting on him as a 4th wide, I'd rather get someone that I do think has a bit higher of a floor.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
especially with
I'm
the 18 roster
about
spots where you can't pair him with Marvin Jones.
Right.
So, David, any favorite wide receivers among the guys left on the board here?
I still like Boyd. I'm on him every year, so it gets kind of old, I guess. But I don't mind double tapping Baltimore receivers. They got all pass funnel defenses in the playoffs, and if they are going to pass more, we could benefit from that. You like Sky Moore, I see?
I think he's worth a shot. Again, in a tournament like this, I just kind of dug into him for our Draft Sharks profiles, and I tweeted that not a surprise he didn't do much last year. Right? He was a quarterback and cornerback in high school, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then he goes to Western Michigan, transfers to wide receiver as a freshman. Spends just 3 years in college. One of those was a COVID shortened year. I think he only played like 30 colleges, so he has 30 games of experience at wide receiver, and it came against lower level competition. So yeah, I know it's not good when a guy does as little as he did as a rookie, but I do think he was a nice looking prospect coming out, and he's still tied to Pat Mahomes, and there's still plenty of opportunity in that wide receiver course. I think there's still a path for Sky Moore.
How are you projecting these wideouts in Kansas City, David?
Oh, I would have to pull it up because it gives me a headache every time I look at it, I think. So.
Yeah, don't do that then.
Let's see here. I'm bigger on MVS than the field, I know.
That sounds like a projections guy talking.
Yeah, I like MVS versus the field. Tony, I have to like force inflate his numbers to make it make sense because I can't just project his efficiency year out for his targets per route run and stuff like that. That just doesn't add up to me personally. And I know we have our differences on Tony, right?
Hey, Jared and I have our differences on Tony.
So I'm much lower on Tony as well, even though I pump his numbers up just because I don't truly know how to do it. And then the rest are kind of long shots, right? I don't know exactly how they would be used. I did like Sky Moore's profile a lot, and I dislike Rashee Rice's profile a lot, but he's the most recent draft pick they took, and they spent a lot to get him. So I've actually ended up with more Rashee Rice than Sky Moore because I think he fits their offense maybe a little better with Kadarius and Sky kind of overlapping roles a little bit.
Yeah, I know they've the Chiefs have mentioned Rice as like a potential Juju replacement, someone that can kind of play inside and outside. I think they're kind of similar sized even. I'm with you. I think Sky Moore had the better prospect profile, and Sky Moore was a 2nd round pick too.
Right.
I can't remember exactly who went earlier in round 2, but draft capitalized there.
Sky Moore, Zay Jones, Jacoby Myers, and Michael Gallup are the receivers right here.
I don't mind Jacoby. I like Gallup a lot. I think he's going to continue to rise this offseason. Jacoby projects out really well for me personally. But
yeah, I think I even have Myers projected highest. I do worry about upside with him.
That's true.
I like Myers.
But he comes well with a bring back for Richardson, I guess, for week 17 at least.
All right, Myers it is.
Our boy Anthony Richardson that we went out on a limb for. Go ahead and week 17 stack him.
If we can figure this out at wide receiver, I feel like we're hurting at wide out, but
we are.
I'm happy with this team so far.
That's okay. It's looking like a 9
for sure.
At least a 9 wide receiver build, I think.
For sure. Star guy Nico, who
him.
I have a ton of.
Yeah, he's
already
plus
9 wide
20%
receivers
for
at
me.
least would be 2 quarterbacks, which we're done with already, 5 running back, 9 wide out, and 2 tight ends, right?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I mean, yeah,
That's the way I'm leaning right now.
I'm willing to go 4 running backs sometimes. I would not do it with Javonte Williams being one of our 3.
And the double bye week, that's
and the double bye, yeah. So it's gonna have to be a 5 running back team.
I think so too. I'm fine taking them real late though, for this
sure.
particular build. I think we got a hammer wide receiver for quite a while here,
Mhm.
or a tight end to end that.
David, how do you feel about Nico Collins and I guess by extension other Texans wide receivers as he comes up as somebody in our queue now?
Right, another really gross one to project, right? Like there's so many names, there's so many new faces. Nico's my number 1 by a long shot. He really pops in my wide receiver model, and I have him down from that. So if he reaches his ceiling of what my models think, he's going to do even better than what my already bullish projection has on him.
So we're like Gallup or
high
Nico Collins right here in round 11.
It's Nico for me.
It's Nico, yep.
Who are you there, Matt? Are you Gallup?
I would want both guys, so I don't have any strong between them.
You only get 1 pick, can't have them both.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. Each draft you get 1 pick, but you can't draft it like you're just drafting one team.
Right.
I want plenty of Gallup, especially now that they're talking up how he's looking in practice. I mean, I think he's a nice value even with Brandon Cooks around. And like this is the format where I want Gallup. Once we get to lineup setting, I don't want Gallup around because he's just gonna make me angry when he's not getting any more than 6 targets a game.
No, I think he has really good ceiling there, and there's a lot of target volume to go around with Schultz gone too, and the way they've kind of changed things up. But I like Brandon Cooks a lot. I think I'm fine taking every Cowboys wide receiver at cost right now.
Yeah, just hope Schottenheimer doesn't neuter that passing game too badly.
Oh yeah, I have him tempered back on pass volume and play rate because of him. But
I mean, the thing is, they weren't pass heavy last year. I think that's what some people are missing.
Just because they were so fast.
Yeah, they were fast. Yeah, which maybe, hopefully they'll stay fast. I do think Dak Prescott has something to do with that. Yeah, but it's not like they're going from this team that was 62% pass last year and they're going to be 55 this year. It's not. I don't think it's going to be too big of a change as far as pass volume goes.
Well, they also didn't have a whole lot of receiving production outside of CeeDee Lamb last year. Dalton Schultz to some degree, but
Why do you roll your eyes when you say Dalton Schultz? He got me to the BBM final last year.
Because Dalton Schultz is
he's great, man.
He's somebody that I'm drafting not at all. I think I have 1 accidental auto pick of him this year across all of my drafts.
Oh, he's my 3rd or 4th highest owned tight end right now, I think.
Has
we just talked.
Has he fallen in ADP? I feel like he was higher than tight end 13.
I can check. I'll
pull up the tiny bit, probably behind. He's now the 2nd Dalton in ADP, whereas he used to be the 1st one.
He has fallen 7 spots since the opening of BBM.
It's probably more that Kincaid and Chig have passed him.
Risen. Yeah. Sure. But I think JJ Zacharyson did a study on tight ends that can lead their team in receiving, like when they're kind of ambiguous, so to speak. And I don't think Dalton Schultz is that far off from having a chance at that. Like we said, we like Nico, and their playoff schedule is gorgeous. Tennessee twice, and then they got Cleveland, so not great there. But Tennessee was the most pass funnel defense in the league, and then they kind of gutted their entire team this year as well. So really like the pass catchers.
Yeah, I mean he's had decent target shares in Dallas alongside some pretty stiff wide receiver competition. You got an okay contract from Houston, like that. He's clearly their guy. He's not exciting, but I do think he's going to finish top 10 among tight ends and targets if he stays healthy.
Hey, that's why we bring a different voice in to try to talk in some ideas that haven't been tossed around. So we'll see. Maybe I'll mix in a couple of Dalton Schultzes, but I can't say I'm Chig Okonkwo is a player worth talking about. David, where are you at on him again? Because I already know about Jared, and he's somebody we've talked about quite a bit behind the curtain.
I think he's okay is the best way I kind of put it. I'm not excited when I draft him at all. I don't think his ceiling's very high. I forget how small he is a lot of the times.
243.
So he's kind of a little bit of a smaller tight end guy, right?
He's Jordan Reed.
Almost
That's
exactly.
It's a perfect comp, right? No, yeah, I'm just a little sheepish on him most of the time.
I'd probably take him here.
I like Osborne, Schultz,
really?
and Chig, I guess.
Jaden Reed's available. I know Matt likes him.
See, well, I liked
I
him
like the
before.
tight ends here.
I'm not huge on
Tight end sounds okay.
Tight end, so you guys like?
You guys
I
pick
like
this one.
I like Dulcich among them, but I'm okay with any of them. So Chig Okonkwo, I think, is somebody who would be nice if he were tight end 15 or 16. I think at tight end 12, he's no longer exciting to me because I think that's right around his ceiling. And I think that the floor is that he doesn't spend more than the 55% of the time on the field that the top Titans tight end did last year. And I mean, we'll see about the blocking portion. There's big changes at tight end along with receiver there. So I don't know what they're going to do, but like I said, none of their tight ends spent more than 55% of the time on the field. We've been through this before with the Mike Vrabel coaching staff with Johnny Smith, where we're like, okay, now there's opportunity for him to stay on the field more, and he just didn't. So it might just be how they're going to apply their tight ends, and then that applies the ceiling in what's already not a very pass-friendly offense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's their second best pass catcher, like clearly to me. So it'd be crazy for him not to be on the field for the vast majority of passing plays. We don't care about running plays; he can come off the field for those.
But their second best pass catcher was caught like 42 balls last year.
Yeah, which ain't bad at tight end.
That's fair.
I think the other factor that keeps me from liking anybody a lot in that range is I don't see any difference at all between their upside and Hayden Hurst much later.
I'm much more in your camp, Matt. I don't see his ceiling case at all. Like Dulcich, I can see a ceiling case. Schultz, he can lead his team, right? Chig, I don't see any more ceiling than what he's being drafted at. Let's get Dulcich out of the queue. I guess we don't accidentally auto him.
Yep. You guys have
Tank Bigsby around here.
Yeah, I mean, Roshan Bigsby.
I like Allgeier a lot.
Really? Is more than a handcuff?
I think he has standalone value personally, but we don't have to take him here necessarily, right?
You like Bigsby? Bigsby?
Yep, he's fine.
Okay. All right. Bigsby it is.
So we're at 7799.
Who I've been talking. The last point I wanted to make about Tennessee, and I feel like I've been saying this for the past couple of years, is their defense is just bad, and they're just not going to be a good team. Like at some point, you got to think, not necessarily even the wheels fall off Henry, but just if they're in more trailing game scripts, the pass rate comes up at least a little bit when it's been. I mean, to me, the upside case for Chig is, I mean, one, he's a big play tight end, right? I mean, his profile is at his speed coming into the league, and then what he showed last year. But two, I just think he's a guy who could earn an 18% target share because of the combination of his talent plus what else is in that offense. And if he does that, like he's very likely 10 tight end at minimum.
Did he have many red zone targets? I truly don't know. Or was it all big plays that most of his points came from?
I don't know offhand either.
Catch. Yeah, I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, but I think he's more of a run after catch guy so far.
Yeah. My memories, whenever I picture him, it's running 20 yards to get into the end zone if he makes it there. But
he had 6 targets in the red zone and 3 inside the 10, which he only had 46 targets last year. So
yeah, he didn't play a ton, so that's okay, right?
And that was actually all of Tennessee's targets in that range too.
Actually, let me pull this back up. And also, he had a 7.6 yard ADOT, which was on the lower side even for a tight end. He actually tied for the team lead in targets inside the 10 with a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's more impressive than I thought it was going to be. So.
Again, I think they'd be stupid not to make him a big part of their passing game, just considering what else they have there.
He's fine. Yeah. Not a player I hate, but not a player I love either. David, Tyler Allgeier, what's the case for loving him?
Oh my God, he popped so much in my rushing yards over expected, the analytics version. I mean, he looked tremendous in there, and over 1,000 yards as a rookie. I don't care if he was a 6th round pick or whatever he was. I was higher on his profile than most. I do that strength in numbers kind of little tournament I do with rookie rankings, and I had him highest by I think 3 spots compared to the field for running backs, and so I am a little higher on him. I'm definitely have bias showing, so I need you guys to level me out there. But leading all rookies in rushing yards over expected for me is a big signal personally. Yep. I really like that. I don't think Bijan's going to be an 80% snap guy or 75 even. I I believe them when they say it's no longer a workhorse league. I think the running back coach or offensive coordinator said that this week as well. And that's what I was expecting, right? A pretty good split, like 65-35 split even. I don't think they race Allgeier out of there. And their playoff schedule is gorgeous. It's one of the best for running backs out there. They got, let's see, Carolina, Indianapolis, and Chicago. Just, they're going to be soft defenses that they're running against. I don't know if they get ahead and put Allgeier more in.
We're on the clock here. Sorry, I'll let you pick back up after we make a pick here. Man, it's all quarterbacks and tight ends topping the ADP. Do you guys like? I guess do you like? I think we're not taking a quarterback or tight end, right? I like Curtis Samuel best. He's a guy who comes out quite a bit higher than ADP in my projections.
Yeah, I think he's fine. I like that Eric Bieniemy's there now because he likes using players like that, right? So I'm excited for him and Gibson in their kind of multi roles that they can play under him. So I hope they play to that this year. Also, that gives that double taps us on Washington receivers too.
Who else? Do you guys like anything else? Downs would give us a stack with Richardson if we're at all interested in that.
Is Alec Pierce already gone?
Yeah, Pierce is gone. I had him queued up at one point.
Oh boy.
Or you guys add on Rashid Shaheed?
I would prefer a lot of people to Josh Downs. I don't think they're going to pass much, and I think he's the wide receiver 3.
I agree.
And I just don't know that he can pay off.
This is a range where I kind of talk myself into Hunter Renfrow on the chance that he gets traded.
Yeah, I got a lot of Jacoby and Renfrow stacks. Just the wide receiver pairing. I think everyone's so cool on Jimmy Garoppolo that they're knocking these second and third options. Waller isn't there. Renfrow flourished when Waller was out. He got peppered with targets. So that's
Myers and Renfrow, how they're deployed just overlaps. So which I do think is
we're on the clock now. We got Hunter Renfrow, Josh Downs, Robert Woods, somebody I like the target upside on, a little bit less attractive than half PPR.
Shakir?
I think we can wait on him. But
who's down a little further? I know we're getting well past ADP, but not a whole lot, huh?
We're taking Renfrow.
You guys mind targeting Marvin Jones or Russell Gage late? I know we need wide receiver help, so those are two of my favorite later round ones.
No, I don't mind it.
Detroit pairs with Pollard as well, so that's a common pairing for me.
That's a good
if I miss out.
Yep, I like that.
Can you scroll through our team one more time?
So it's Hurts and Richardson at quarterback, so we're done there. Pollard, Mixon, Javonte Williams, and Tank Bigsby, probably adding one more there. Cooper Kupp, McLaurin, Rashad Bateman, Myers, Nico Collins, Curtis Samuel, and Hunter Renfrow. And then Goddard and Chig Okonkwo. So we're done at tight end, I think, right? So we're probably looking one more running back and 2 more wideouts.
Yeah, who are you guys' favorite late round wide receiver targets? Sorry we couldn't take Hunter Henry for you in this draft, Matt. He's a favorite of mine, round 18 pick. Just money if you need a second or third tight end.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the 20-round drafters drafts, and so I'm typically taking 3 tight ends, which makes him an easy favorite for me there, especially because I'm also generally taking 3 quarterbacks for those 20-person rosters. And I mean, Mac Jones, Hunter Henry is free at the end of that draft, so anything they do for me is great.
The ultimate safety nets at quarterback and tight end for me as well.
Right.
So I just queued up.
I have trouble loving any of the very end of the draft wide receiver options. What about you, Jared?
I just queued up 2 rookies, Michael Wilson and Cedric Tillman. Tillman's just a play on his talent. I like the prospect, and I am big on the Browns passing game in particular this season. I know there's a lot of bodies in front of Tillman right now, but things happen. Maybe by the end of the year he's carved out a role in what I expect to be a really strong passing game. And Wilson, more about just the situation, obviously, after DeAndre Hopkins was released. Like they need another outside receiver, right? I mean, I pray they do not stick Rondell Moore on the outside again like they tried to at times last year, because that did not work. So, I mean, really, I think there's a chance it's Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson as their 2 outside wide receivers. I mean, and they spent a 3rd-round pick on Michael Wilson. It's not like he was a day 3 guy. Not a prospect I loved. I know some film guys liked him quite a bit. He dealt with a bunch of injuries at Stanford, but Wilson would also give us the Week 17 correlation with the Hurts Goddard stack, because it's Philly, Arizona in Week 17.
I've seen the hype on him. I haven't clicked him yet, but that's That's a fair point. He has the body type to be outside, right? And that should get him lots of playing time. I have no clue on his level of talent. He didn't even register in my database for most of his metrics. So that would be a pure film player for me. If
he seemed like a
those guys are
surprise
high,
sweep pick.
That's how I show it as well.
Who are your favorite late round wideouts, David? And I guess actually before we get to that, since we're 3 picks away, how are you feeling on Khalil Shakir and any of the other wide receivers that we have queued up right now?
I think we have some favorites that we can get in the last round where I'd probably lean running back here to get our 5th. And then we got a lot of wide receiver options to choose from, all of which aren't great, right? But I like Fournette, I like Zach Evans, I like Clyde.
Yeah, I've been drafting more CEH than I care to admit. He's usually there in round 18 still.
That's right.
I don't even know if we need to take him. I would go Shakir here and then come back with a running back.
Okay.
You guys good with that?
Sure.
Then we can come back with a.
Do you think Shakir has the edge on Trent Sherfield right now? It seems like Sherfield has all the buzz in camp right now.
Doesn't Trent Sherfield always buzz around this time of year?
Yeah. He's been in the league long enough. Like I just think he's like a 4th or 5th wide receiver. I mean, if Shakir can't beat him out, then there's other issues, and Shakir wasn't gonna be a thing anyways.
If they start a no pads league, he's gonna be a star. So who's the favorite this turn? We got one more pick before ours.
If we want Marvin Jones, we should probably take him here. I'd be okay with taking a running back and then just seeing which of these wideouts gets back.
I'm okay running back. I don't like missing out on this tier if we need a 5th one.
Who do you guys like have a preference?
I like all 3 of those. Those are common round 17, 18 picks for my 5th. So
Matt.
Yeah, I'm fine with those. I personally lean Gus Edwards over them because I'm chasing the Baltimore offense, but I don't have an argument against them other than Zach Evans, who I just don't like at all.
Yeah, I'm out on Evans too.
Okay.
All right, David, pick between Fournette and CEH for us.
Let's go Clyde.
Yeah, so Zach Evans for me, I especially don't like Zach Evans because he's going ahead of Kyron Williams, and I don't have any reason right now to believe that he would be ahead of Kyron Williams on the depth chart. So until I have that confirmed for me, I would much rather wait until the end of the draft and take Kyron Williams, who's not going to be taken in every draft and would make my team, closer to unique that way, than take a player that I don't like earlier in the draft just because everybody else is.
Yep. For me, he's a fade on Akers and them potentially being out of the playoff race and wanting to see what they want to get from him, especially with their playoff schedule being somewhat running back favorable. So it's kind of 3 things need to really happen there, I guess. So, but it's round 18, right? Or round 17. You gotta find something to hold on to and just go with it.
Yeah, I'm not really in on either of those other Rams backs, which maybe is why I like Cam Akers more than you guys as well.
I'm not in on any of them, but if one I have to choose over the other 2, I'm going to take the one that nobody wants just for that reason, because it's the very end of the draft and I can see the path for him at least as easily as Zach Evans, if not easier.
I noticed when I mentioned Leonard Fournette, that didn't quite spark a twinkle in either of your guys' eye there for drafting him late, huh?
I mean, I love Fournette. He made me a lot of money 2 years ago. I just you got to hop off these running backs, and as they age, and the fact that he's still unsigned as of now. I mean, he's going to catch on somewhere, right? Maybe it's a good spot, and maybe he still catches 30 or 40 balls. But
that's where it's tough for me. Is I'm not sure I'm not sure he's a definite to latch on because he stunk last year and he's old and he's big, and I don't think he's a given. So that's what would stop me.
The pass protection and receiving profile always gets me, and I've always had to battle against the Fournette haters over the years. So I'm definitely another personal bias one on there.
I was with you the past 2, even last year. I liked him.
Yep, he was on my BBM final team again.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, he was fine, especially in full PPR leagues. But I'm kind of hopping off that train this year.
I suppose, by the way, that I can't argue too much against Josh Downs in the last round if he makes it there 20 spots after ADP and stacks with our quarterback. But he just went
off the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with Marvin Jones. I think Wilson would be my next pick if Jones comes off the board.
Yeah, I would put Gage in the queue as well, just as an option if some of these guys go. I really, really like Gage as a late pick when I do 0 wide receiver builds, but this isn't that, so it doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, my
there goes
concern,
Marvin.
Yeah, there goes Marv. My thing with Gage and the Bucks wide receivers in general, I do think there's going to be just a massive drop in pass volume there this year.
Oh, absolutely. I think I got like a 10% decrease, so you got something like that too. And
yeah, I think both pass rates coming down, and I think just total play volume is coming down. Combine those two, it's pretty drastic, and efficiency, of course. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. So most people aren't looking at Russell Gage, but for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, David, how is it affecting those guys? I mean, they're both going later than you would have typically expected in previous seasons. Are they values for you, or is it like, nah, that's where they belong?
I was fading them hard early, and they've fallen since, which is, in my opinion, rightfully so. So I've started taking Godwin a good bit. I've always been a big fan, and he pops in some of my underlying metrics models and, completions over expected and stuff like that. Evans, I do think, is on the down slope, barring that week 17 savior game last year. He was not having a great year. So I think Godwin's still on the rise. Evans kind of peaked, and Gage is, who he is, which is pretty good, for a wide receiver 3 in most offenses. I do think one of them gets traded between Godwin and Evans.
Oh, there you go. That'd make Gage interesting. Around the clock here, you guys like?
I'm agnostic on this.
Wilson or Gage works for me. I think they make more sense for a team.
Yeah, that's like Wilson just for the week 17 correlation.
Sounds good.
All right, that's the squad.
So Michael Wilson is the thrilling round 18 pick to close out this BBM 4 entry. That gives us 9 receivers, right? We did go with 5 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. Anthony Richardson, the accidental second quarterback, but there is the upside, and certainly by the end of the year, he will almost definitely be in the lineup. I'll be curious to see how early it is, because it doesn't sound like the Colts are in line with the thinking that Anthony Richardson is arriving, especially raw, and is, even a possibility to sit out his first year to develop. It sounds like they're more along the lines of thinking that he's close to ready to enter the lineup. And obviously Gardner Minshew is not keeping anybody on the sideline.
Was it Irsay or Ballard who, the way I read the quote was like, we're okay if we suck this year because we know Richardson to improve has to get out there. So even if he's not quote unquote ready, we're going to throw him out there because that's how this guy's going to get better. So yeah, I expect him to be in there early. We did get him 6 picks past ADP, and I think his ADP is going to continue to rise. I don't know, maybe a Hurts Richardson combo is probably on the rare side. So just trying to, convince myself that the Richardson auto pick wasn't the worst thing in the world.
The way I was playing it through, I was doing the same thing, trying to convince myself. And I go, the perfect scenario is Hurts gets hurt for 3 to 4 weeks where Richardson goes off during those 3 to 4 weeks. So that's our in, or misses one playoff week game and where Richardson goes off. And then we have the most unique team in the field, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
There you go. Any other particular notes from that squad?
Let's see. I got it written down here. I think our wide receivers turned out okay. They're not fantastic, right? But I think they'll work. I guess we need one of our running backs, to pop pretty good. Javonte may start slow, so that's a little concerning. I don't know that we have a ton of firepower to carry us till he's in there with Pollard and Mixon.
As long as he's going by week 7 when Pollard and Mixon hit their bye, we're in good shape.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. No, I really do like him though. In that offense coming around, and I do think Peyton loves using his running backs a lot. So I'm excited for him now that injury reports are coming out real positive. I know some of the injury docs out there are pretty skeptical, and they always got that first year after injury lull. Mm-hmm. But I think he's young enough and he's good enough, and what I saw him doing in practice was, pretty convincing to me, a guy who doesn't know shit about injury stuff, but it was good.
Yeah, it was convincing to the Twitter docs you're talking about too, which I thought was encouraging. I mean, I've vacillated back and forth on Javonte all offseason because, I definitely believe in the talent. I think, like you said, the offense does have bounce back potential. The O-line is going to be better this year. But the more I read about the injury, like the 2 ligaments and some other part of the knee I'd really never heard of before I learned that Williams tore it.
Yeah.
It actually a kind of a similar injury to what Dobbins suffered, and he didn't do much till the final month.
Yeah, the
last
docs
season.
I
So
follow compare him to Dobbins a lot, like you said,
Yeah.
and they say he's way ahead of schedule of what Dobbins was. But no, it's funny. I did a tweet. I was kind of being sarcastic about it and go, "How is Javonte practicing already? I thought all that was holding his knee together was a couple thin strings of cotton. That's all that remained." But so yeah, it's impressive to see him out there.
Yeah, we'll certainly be watching him throughout the summer, but it would be a lot easier to be off of him if you weren't going so late. I think it's easier to take some shots without being overweight on Javonte Williams where he's going. We cut off the talk of the playoff schedule early on to jump into the draft. So let's just hit that chart again real quick before we get out of here. David, we referenced it before, but anybody who's not watching, you might be listening. It's a chart that's showing not just the week 17 stuff, but the 3-week playoff matchups, 15, 16, 17 on this BBM schedule, where all of those are, you got to win this week to move on to the next round. So it really is important to look beyond that week 17. How big a role is this chart, these matchups? How much are they factoring into your draft?
It's really heavy this year because with BBM, unlike years past and some other tournaments, it's one of 16 advance each round, 15 and 16 to get to the final. And to me, that's awfully daunting. Before as, 1 of 10 sometimes, or 2 of 20, or depending the tournament, right? But almost all of them were higher than what this is because of the regular season payouts. So it's 1 of 16 to advance. So I think there should be heavier focus on weeks 15 and 16 this year. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize in this. Obviously, week 17 is still most important. Like, to win $3 million, you have to have a spot on week 17 lineup and to get there. So that's clearly the most important yet. But this just kind of gives you a nice overall picture, in my opinion. Like, you see Eagles just have a cake schedule for the defenses they face. So we got Hurts and Goddard in our particular team we just drafted. So that bodes well for that, unless they just go run heavy the whole time. But that's a good reason why I'm super overweight on Penny and Swift this year is because of this. Both the team, I think they're good players, and then they just have a cake playoff schedule. So this kind of shows the defense, how many points they're projected to allow versus the average defense. Mm-hmm. So you can see Eagles have the second easiest schedule as far as points allowed defenses they face, Saints being number 1. So I kind of throw their average spread per game in there. Eagles, again, heavy favorites in there. The funnel defenses, and the funnel is strictly based on last year, and defenses change a lot, right? As Matt can probably, if I incorporated some of your thoughts into this, Matt, it'd probably make it a lot more powerful, right? And hold up in predictability. But I think it's a good start. It shows game totals in there as far as projections too. So I kind of identified shootouts, like Vikings have a lot of shootout games with Cincy, Detroit, and Green Bay, and some other stuff like that. I think the Lions do as well. So yeah, it's a lot of things to look at. It's a lot to consider. But the more you study it and the more you play into your value plays along with playoffs, I think gives you the biggest edge that you can. You got to combine everything together. Looking at one isolated thing is never enough.
Right. And with all the info out there, we're stacking micro edges to try to create an edge overall, right?
Exactly. That's why I like I call them triple crown players. So someone that hits everything I look at. So
yeah. So what is that triple crown for you?
The triple crown. Oh, that's a guy who's a value in my projections versus ADP, just from a points over replacement standpoint. A good playoff schedule and a wide range of outcomes. So that's why I kind of mentioned on Javonte. He hits that really well. The Eagles running backs hit that well. Cincy wide receivers, I guess they don't have a wide range of outcomes. They're going to be really good, but they got everything else going for them, in my opinion.
Well, check him out at David Zach 16, ZACH 16 on Twitter. Fellow supporter of Quentin Johnston and Tyler Lockett. David, thank you for joining us today and drafting a team together.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've always looked up to you guys and your work, so really appreciate you having me on. It's been a blast. So hope to see you guys more this offseason. I'm sure we will be arguing on some stuff on Twitter as always. So
that's right. We'll be out in them streets.
Yeah.
The draft room, of course, on draftsharks.com is waiting to help you build out your best ball portfolio right now. Sync with Underdog. You will get the sidebar in your draft room to help you keep track of the best picks as you go. You can also sync with just about any other league hosting site that you're playing on. You get sidebars in some of them. You get the picks in the draft war room in all of them. We're here to help. For our guest, David Zock, my pal, Jared Small, and the rest of the Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.